11 underappreciated PlayStation 3 action games that still play brilliantly. When the PlayStation 3 was launched in 2006, it had a far from perfect start. There were several delays that frustrated gamers, and they were left disappointed with a lack of a proper library. To add to their woes, this console was quite expensive. All these added up to make the PS3 achieve much less than it was supposed to. However, there were some noteworthy positives about it, with the action games in particular standing out. Many are visually stunning even today, and the first-party exclusives are still some of the best-looking games that you can find. After all, you have to consider that the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 were the first consoles to try out an HD gaming experience. In this video, we will take a look at some of the underrated action games. They play brilliantly even today, and you would be pleasantly surprised if you tried them out. BULLETSTORM. In the 26th century, the Confederation of Planets runs the universe. Dead Echo is a Black Ops team, and their leader Grayson Hunt assassinates Bryce Novak on the orders of Confederation General Victor Serrano. He soon finds out that the man he killed was an innocent reporter working to prove Serrano's corrupt policies. Hunt also discovers that Serrano has been using Dead Echo to get rid of his personal and political enemies. When Serrano sends soldiers to have them killed, Hunt flees to the edges of the universe along with his team. Several years later, when Hunt and his team crash land on the planet Stygia alongside the evil boss General Serrano, old rivalries are renewed. The planet is now overrun with cannibal gangs, monsters, and killer plants, and Hunt has to deal with multiple threats in the course of his mission. The first-person shooter game was developed by People Can Fly and Epic Games, and Electronic Arts was the publisher. Its single-player campaign is impressive, but we would have loved the game to stretch a bit longer. The story is deep and well-written, and we love playing as Grayson Hunt, the soldier-turned-space pirate. Gameplay in BULLETSTORM is quite unique, and you have a new mechanic involved called the skill shot. You can rank up your points by eliminating enemies in creative ways, and this will upgrade your weapons and get you a higher score. The lush and colorful landscapes are fascinating, and the graphics left us all impressed. Some people have dubbed the humor in this title to be unnecessarily crass, but we didn't mind it amidst such action-packed content. It is non-stop carnage, and you hardly get a breather where you don't have to shoot at stuff. As long as you're comfortable with heavy-duty violence and crude profanity, BULLETSTORM is a must-try for you.
Holy shit!
Clive Barker's JERICHO. This game is a disturbing mythology that suggests that God created some entity called the Firstborn before Adam and Eve. It turned out to be so disturbing that the creator banished it into the abyss and went ahead to create mankind. However, the Firstborn was too powerful for God to stop from breaking into the human world. The game starts off as a General Leech. A high-ranking officer in the US Department of Occult Warfare is contacted by the Firstborn. It convinces Leech to commit evil acts for 20 years to build up enough evil energy that would allow the Firestorm to escape from its confinement. When the breach is made, the Department of Occult Warfare sends a special team called JERICHO to seal it. When the team fails to stop the breach, they try to close it from within. Now they have to battle with those souls that broke the domain in the past. Who will win in this fight between humanity and the Firstborn? As the name suggests, this game was written and produced by Clive Barker, and credit goes to him for thinking outside the box. You can tell that a film director was in charge of the concept because the game has a movie vibe to it. The first-person shooter promises a lot of action, and the dark atmosphere is hard to miss. The graphics are not all disappointing, and the stunning visuals will make you feel like you're a part of that world. We love the demonic dark sounds that uplifts the gaming experience. Another fascinating thing about JERICHO was the character development that was carefully done. You can choose from 7 different characters, and all of them have different weapons and abilities. JERICHO is tough as anything, and the intense gameplay will take some time to perfect. As long as you are up for the challenge, this will be a title that you wouldn't forget in a very long time. ASURA'S Wrath. ASURA'S Wrath was developed by CyberConnect 2 and published by Capcom for PS3, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and even PS4. The story is premised in a world named Gaia, inhabited by several human tribes. A demonic race called Goma threatens the balance of this world, and in order to protect Gaia, a force of godlike cyborgs is assembled by Emperor Strada. Asura is one of the generals fighting in this force. But after defeating the Goma, he arrives to find the Emperor dead. The guards accuse him of the murder and he is forced to flee on the charges of treason. After spending 12,000 years in the limbo of Naraka, Asura returns to find Gaia in a chaotic situation. Goma is still wreaking havoc in the world, and this time Asura wants revenge for all that happened to him. His fellow demigods who betrayed him are in for a nasty surprise. This game is a truly cinematic experience that moves like an engaging TV show. The story is unraveled slowly, and the depth of the plot will take you by surprise. It is almost like watching an anime, and gamers will appreciate the unique sense of style. It makes great use of Asian, Hindu, and Buddhist cosmology, and brings it to life in a creative way. We were bowled over by the incredible character designs, and the voiceovers are perfect fits for the characters. The fighting in this game could have been better, but you wouldn't be complaining about the epic boss battles. Our multi-arm protagonist is often overpowered, and you have to make use of your best skills to get the better of your enemies. The action is unreal, and the stunning graphics will make it worth your time. There is also an emotional side to the narrative, and you will feel anger, sorrow, and joy at different stages. Asura's Wrath has received a lot of hate, and many came down heavily on the game for being culturally insensitive. Strictly from a gaming point of view, however, we have to say this is right up with the finest we have played. The Darkness 2, the first-person shooter, was developed by Digital Extremes and published by 2K Games for PS3, Xbox 360, and Windows. It is a sequel to The Darkness that was released in 2007, and the concept is based on a comic book series. The story starts off as Jackie takes over as the head of the Franchetti family. He knows how to control the ancient demonic force in his bloodline, but he has other troubles to deal with. The memory of his murdered girlfriend haunts him, and when his gang is attacked by a rival group, he uses the dark forces to restore his powers. He now has some supernatural abilities, and his pair of demonic arms is a deadly weapon. You play as Jackie as he tries to rescue the soul of his dead girlfriend from the darkness and hell. He also has to fight the armed cultists who are trying to take away his abilities.
We are the Angelus.
The Darkness did not impress many people, but this game restored the fire back in the franchise. As a fitting sequel, it has a considerably better storyline and is not just mindless action. The narrative will keep you on the edge of your seats because you will always be wondering what happens next. Coming to the gameplay, you follow the mobster Jackie yet again and explore his bond with the entity called Darkness. You have some cool weapons to use and also the dark powers that are at your disposal. The collectibles are quite interesting, and this game does not rely as much on stealth as the first one did. You simply go and take out the bad guys with some intense gunplay. However, Jackie's weakness to light is a bit annoying, and there are times when you are simply blinded. The voice acting by Brian Blood stands out and brings out the best of Jackie as a character. The Darkness 2 does end on a cliffhanger, and it is unfortunate that there wasn't a part 3 to finish the story. The Saboteur. This open-world action-adventure is premised during World War II in German-occupied France. Sean is a hard-drinking Irish race car mechanic. He arrives in Saarbrücken with his best friend Jules to take part in the Saarbrücken Grand Prix. He has a rivalry with Kurt Dierker, who is a Nazi SS commander and infamous racer. Kurt wins by shooting out Sean's tires during the race, and to get back at him, Sean and Jules head to his automotive factory to sabotage his car. However, Kurt finds them and kills Jules in front of Sean. Sean escapes, but the German invasion of Paris takes place. He is determined to avenge the murder of his best friend and joins resistance groups to disrupt Nazi operations. This game takes you through some vicious fighting against the Nazi oppression, while Sean wants his revenge on Kurt as well.
Son of a bitch!
The Saboteur was developed by Pandemic Studios and published by Electronic Arts for PS3, Xbox 360, Windows, and iOS. The gameplay might remind you of Assassin's Creed and GTA, but the immersive narrative will take you in once you realize that you are part of a mini World War II. The storytelling is often cinematic, and we love the fact that you get to decide how to go about a mission. Your methods can be anything from all guns blazing to stealth mode, but as long as you complete the objectives, you will clear the mission. However, it is advisable to opt for strategy because the Nazis will keep coming if you try shooting them all. The stealth tactics can be a bit tricky at first. The Nazis grow suspicious of your presence when you are near them, and you must keep your distance. There are people who complain about some repetitive missions, but we were never tired of placing bombs at the right places and watching the Nazis get blown up. This was the last video game developed by Pandemic Studios and is a fitting farewell to a great developer. Binary Domain. This game is set in a futuristic world that has been devastated by the impacts of global warming. There has been worldwide flooding and most of the planet has become uninhabitable. The vast majority of the population perished in this calamity, and the governments made new cities above the waterline with the help of a robotic labor force. Bergen is an American business that controls most of the robotic industries, but a Japan corporation named Amada sues it for stealing their technology. The lawsuit fails because Bergen has a lot of influence, and it goes on to take control of around 95% of the robotics market. A new Geneva Convention is chalked out that forbids research into robots that could pass as humans. Rust Crews is an organization that deals with any breach of this convention, and when an android attacks Bergen headquarters, they suspect foul play at Amada. But what is the reality? This third-person shooter was published by Sega for PS3, Microsoft Windows, and Xbox 360. Binary Domain is a rare gem that boasts of a complex, yet not convoluted narrative. It might sound absurd, but it is way too entertaining. We were absorbed by the compelling yet imperfect characters, and the graphics were pretty decent. Through the exciting narrative, the game also plays on some interesting philosophical themes relating to artificial intelligence. There are some intense fights, but they are merely interruptions between the extensive cutscenes. We loved the boss designs, and the boss level enemies were fun to take on. Unless you hit upon the right strategy, you will be stuck in a loop trying to overcome the challenge. The weapon choices are somewhat limited, but you get the necessary ones to fight the enemies. There aren't too many flaws in the gameplay, barring some minor glitches, but the awkward camera angles can be very irritating at times. Binary Domain had enough potential to fuel a sequel, but unfortunately, that never materialized. If you have a thing for guns and robots, this will be a fun title for you to try out. Dark Sector. Larsia is a fictional satellite country that borders the Soviet Union, and this game is premised in this imaginary world. The Larsians find an American submarine off their coast, and on further inspection, they let loose an infection called the Technocyte. Now the victims of this infection are mutated beings with strange powers. You have to play as Hayden Tenno, a CIA agent who teams up with a scientist and a sleeper agent to fight the virus. The man responsible for the crisis is Robert Mesner, an ex-CIA agent who wants to spread the contagion throughout the planet. Can the Technocyte be stopped before it infects uncontrollably? Dark Sector was developed by Digital Extremes for Xbox 360, PS3, and Microsoft Windows. If you are someone who never played this game, the easiest comparison would probably be Gears of War. This third-person shooter takes you through a maze of monsters that Mesner has created, and gamers who love blood and gore will enjoy the action on this one. Don't go hunting for the story because it is nothing more than a cheesy B-movie plot. There are both gunfights and melee combat, and we love the three-bladed weapon called the glaive. The graphics are not the best assets, but the level designs are quite interesting. Coming to the gameplay, the controls are responsive enough. You get a good mix of everything because from unlocking doors to killing off the enemies brutally, you have a wide variety of tasks. There are some minor flaws that can be overlooked because this is clearly a brutal and fun game. X-Men Origins Wolverine. This game was developed by Raven Software for PS2, PlayStation Portable, Wii, and Nintendo DS. It was based on the movie of the same name and was a combination of the Wolverine backstory as depicted in the film and an original narrative created by Raven Software. You control Logan, who once worked for William Stryker and his gang of mutants. Stryker needs your help one more time to fight various mutants and hunt down Sabretooth. This is probably the best Wolverine game that you will find. We get to see his berserker enraged avatar, and we finally have a visual of the kind of damage that he can cause. Origins is not meant for kids because some of Wolverine's attacks are simply too vicious and violent. Some of his moves cause his enemies to be dismembered, and this is quite a frequent event in the game. The gore covers everything from decapitations to impaling antagonists on spikes, with gallons of blood spraying the screen. For gorehounds, this is a guilty pleasure that will give a sought-after adrenaline rush.
Be broken, but I've got just the tools to fix it.
The detailing is breathtaking, and every time the Wolverine is injured, you see the graphic intricacies of his wounds. The boss fights, however, lacked the fire in them and could have been more challenging. Another thing that bothered us at times was the camera that moves on its own. Sometimes these shifts do not help your vision, and you cannot see too far ahead because of the dark horizon. We love the cutscenes, and they added meaning to the narrative. The best thing about this game is how powerful it makes the player feel. Slicing through your enemies can be a ridiculous amount of fun, and no enthusiastic gamer would want to let this opportunity slide. Singularity. When an electromagnetic surge from an island called Katorga 12 damages an American spy satellite, a team led by Captain Renko is sent to investigate. Their helicopter is disabled by another electromagnetic surge, and they crash land on Katorga 12. Following the crash, Renko keeps moving from the present to 1955, when the island is set to have a catastrophic accident. He saves a scientist named Demicha from dying, but when he is back in the present, he finds out that the same scientist has taken over the world. Now Renko has to set history right by returning to 1955 once again and destroying the island for good. The climactic moments of the game are dependent on the choices you make.
2010. A US spy satellite flying over the area is blinded by a radiation surge.
It was developed by Raven Software and published by Activision for PS3, Microsoft Windows, and Xbox 360. Many have called it a Half-Life 2 clone, but even if it is, it has to be praised for the brilliant effort. It is not easy to replicate the brilliance of something as good as that, and Singularity does it successfully. You will also find similarities with Wolfenstein, and the action will remind you of Call of Duty. The plot is compelling, and you will feel like a mini-god with a time manipulator on your wrist. You have to conserve your powers and ammo smartly. There have been times when we regretted not picking up ammo or not saving time-traveling powers to be used later. The story-driven campaign is engaging, and it makes you want to figure out the different endings. Overall, it is too good a game to go unnoticed, and it is a tragedy that Singularity is so underrated.
Damn it! They are attacking the gate emitters! Spider-Man, take them out before they destroy it!
Yes, ma'am.
Spider-Man: Web of Shadow. It starts off with Spider-Man seeking out Mary Jane during a symbiote invasion that has taken over Manhattan. He finds her with Luke Cage, and suddenly an assailant attacks him. They succeed. However, Mary Jane is injured during the fight and has to be hospitalized. In the meantime, Spider-Man teams up with Luke Cage to try and stop a gang war in Harlem. As the symbiotic infestation of the city goes in full swing, Spider-Man must bond with the black suit one more time. We don't say this about many games, but this Spider-Man title is as much fun as it is annoying. First, let us go over the fun bits. The player actually feels like Spider-Man as he swings through the city. The controls are smooth and a drastic improvement from Spider-Man 2. We loved how the black and red suit choices could be made, and there are different endings for each. The large sandbox environment does not disappear, and the graphics are on point. The 3D open world map of New York is remarkably accurate, and it makes exploring the city a lot of fun. One of the complaints that we have is the inadequate story that is a bit lacking. There is a darker tone to the narrative, and a detailed storyline would have helped. The voice acting could have been a lot better, and the whiny Spider-Man and Thor with no command did not impress us. If you bypass these flaws, you will have a wonderful time, and we strongly recommend this game for all Spider-Man fans. Blur. Blur was developed by Bizarre Creations and published by Activision in Europe and North America. It is an arcade-style racing game that also involves elements of vehicular combat. There are both single-player and multiplayer modes available in this game, and you can choose from a wide range of cars from Ford Transit to Dodge Vipers. The tracks have been heavily influenced by real-world environments, and it is fun to race along these locations. The drivers have to participate in competitions, and the events take the form of destruction derbies, time trials, and traditional races. One of the chief problems with racing games is that they get a bit repetitive after a point. Blur is not an exception to this, but it is so arcade-like that you will enjoy it nevertheless. Our favorite part about it was that you could earn more supporters by going for an additional trail, such as a tricky drift or a long distance hit with a missile. We also loved picking up weapons along the road and using them to blast other cars. The real world locations like the Barcelona circuit or the Brighton beachfront were quite appealing, and the visual department did a phenomenal job. Blur was a mix of NFS and Mario Kart, and while it was no classic, we enjoyed the experience. You might frown at our choice of including it in the list, but you must pardon our biasness, for we spent too many all-nighters playing it with our friends.